Here with Christian Dawkins, former NBA agent, represented players such as Fred VanVleet, Toronto Raptors NBA championship guard, who was the centerpiece of the FBI corruption case that went into college basketball, and now the centerpiece of a new HBO documentary called The Scheme, debuting Tuesday night. Christian, appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate you having me.
So, the documentary covered a lot of things. It went very, very in depth. What were some of the critical themes that you wanted to get out of it? I know social justice was a big one, but what were the themes for you that you wanted to make sure were portrayed for the public?
I think first and foremost, I think for everybody involved, it was obviously a huge story. It got a bunch of headlines. There was a bunch of tension that draw to it. But at the end of the day, we wanted to get across that all of these, the case and everything that derived from the case, all stems from the NCAA rules being in place. And when I say NCAA rules, I mean their policies that prohibits players from receiving compensation tied to their name, image, and likeness. So for us, I thought the rules were ridiculous then. I think they're even more ridiculous now. The first thing was to show how ridiculous the rules are and what can happen, what can become a byproduct of the NCAA's amateurism rules.
They wanted you to flip on, whether it was Rick Pitino, the agency that you work for, et cetera, et cetera. You had ample opportunity to do so, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely, when I was arrested, I was asked to cooperate. There was offers that was made for me to plead guilty throughout the course, leading up to trial. To me, that's not taking accountability for one's actions by trying to telling someone else to get a lighter sentence or to get, kind of get off. At the end of the day, people, associated with this case have families, have wives, have kids. I didn't want anybody to be taken away from their immediate family for something as stupid as this. That wasn't the point. The point was we shouldn't even be here. There shouldn't be anything to cooperate for. And if anybody should be the target of the FBI or the DOJ's focus, it should have been the NCAA.
Of course, as a byproduct of the whole investigation, there were businesses, your fellow agents, coaches, players, whether it was Brian Bowen, Eric Davis, guys that were impacted by this. How much remorse do you feel? How bad do you feel right now about it?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that I have remorse for, or I lose sleep about is the people who were negatively impacted by this trial. There was players impacted, whereas their seasons had to stop. There was coaches who no longer could coach. The agency that I worked for, obviously, is no longer, around the way it was. So there was a lot of people whose lives was changed drastically because of this trial. And that is something that I have deep regret for. I apologize to everybody impacted, and I hope and pray that, things turn around for everybody.
I believe the NCAA has reached out to you. What has that level of dialogue been with you?
In our particular case, I haven't had direct dialogue with the NCAA or any of the universities. There's been numerous university presidents or athletic directors, and even NCAA officials who have reached out to my personal attorney, Stephen Haney. I didn't sit with any of those people. If there is a scenario where there's real reform that's going to be made and they need my input or advice or opinion on the best way to compensate the athletes and to clean up what they have caused, then sure, I'd have no issue sitting with the powers that be. But me participating in a theory of amateurism and further pushing that narrative, and I have no interest in doing that at all. The bigger problem is the people trying to withhold the athletes from receiving compensation, not the people who are trying to compensate them or help them be compensated.
Do you look back sometimes and you're like, man, I went too fast, too soon. If I had just, played this out more calculatively, how much do you look back at that?
I definitely think that I moved too fast, too soon. I don't say that with much remorse because I think I learned from it. I learned a lot from it, which helps me today in business. I have successful businesses now. So I've been able to transition and pivot kind of off of what I learned going throughout this process. I definitely can say I made some mistakes of being too ambitious, but now I've learned how to channel that in a proper way, how to channel my ambitions and my passions and my drive and my work ethic in a way that's, more efficient and is better for myself and my coworkers, colleagues, and anybody else that I'm in business with.
You were convicted. You are going to appeal both cases right now. How much do you think this documentary could help your case? Is that a goal of yours? And have you grasped yet, doing time potentially, or are you still of the mindset, knowing that you're going to fight through this?
I think for me, I've never been to prison where I'm just going and staying for a minute. I don't know if there's like a tutorial on YouTube that you can look up, but I try to just operate with the mentality of just taking every day, one day at a time. If that does become my reality at some point, I'll have to deal with it. I've made peace with that, or at least understood that could be a possibility the day that I was arrested and when I didn't cooperate. So listen, it's not a great thing. It's not a fun thing. It's not something that I'm proud of, but it is something that I may have to deal with. And if I do, I'll face it, get through it, and I'll be fine.